Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, not bad, not bad.
All right. Yeah, sorry about that. I think this is a theme going on with my coaching sessions is people tend to book like one session and then it turns into like an always extra time, you know.
Yeah, no problem. I
Um,
just did like a basic 15 minutes because I didn't think it'd be too long.
sure. Yeah, especially if we don't have a replay or anything we're going over, I think 15 minutes is reasonable. We'll probably maybe do 15 or 20. Um, unless do you have anything you have to do here in a little bit?
No, I don't.
Okay, me neither. Not at least for a couple hours. I actually have my own coaching session with Luke here in a few hours. But other than that, I'm good. So, all right.
Right.
Well, I see that in the notes for this session, you said you wanted to work on dribbling and flicks and stuff. So I guess we can go into a private match. I think would probably be the best thing, and we can kind of go over some of that stuff. You can
Yeah,
probably just
sure.
you can just spectate me. Do I have you added on Rocket League? Yeah,
You
I do.
do.
Okay, awesome. All right, so do private match.
Yeah, mainly I've just started dribbling in a sense. Like I've only taken this game seriously probably like the last season is like when I actually wanted to grind the ranks.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this beginning of this season is when I actually joined the GCR and
Yeah,
learning actually a bunch of new stuff. So
I know I've played with you
trying to
before,
be
but
more efficient.
yeah. All right, I'm gonna have you spectate me. I
Yep.
know I've played with you before, but I just gotta ask also for other people as well. I'm recording this by the way, and it'll be uploaded later to YouTube. But what ranks are you currently?
Diamond 3 and 2s and 3s. Pretty
Okay,
much low champ 1.
okay, awesome. All right. So as far as the dribbling and stuff goes, I'm actually gonna break it down from like top to bottom, right? So, no offense to you, I'm gonna treat you kind of like a plat player or gold player that's first starting to even just learn whatsoever. I'm gonna kind of start from the bottom up, right? So a
Right.
lot of things that I recommend people start out with, is obviously okay. Well, with dribbling, it's a lot of people either have a hard time getting the ball on top of the car in the first place. So one place to start is to just bump the ball in one area and then to drive after it and go ahead of it to turn car cam on and then try to drive straight at it, right? If you get the ball rolling towards you, you go ahead of it, turn around. It tends to, if you just drive into it, it'll pop the ball up on top of your car. Then you just have to focus on getting underneath it.
Right. Just a small chip,
Yep.
essentially.
Yep, pretty much. So then, one exercise that if this might be a little too easy for you is to just try to get the ball on top of your car and dribble the whole length of the field. One thing to note here is that you should try to not use as much boost as you can. Try to go the whole length of the field without using boost. That'll be a common theme throughout this whole thing is to try to not use boost when you can because when you use boost, like Luke says in his training videos, you tend to have bigger movements, right? If you boost, you tend to move really fast. You tend to turn a
Right.
lot quicker. So it tends to like spin you out and make you a little wild, right? Makes you lose control a little quicker. So one exercise that you can do if you really like the workshop maps is that you can actually go into a private match like this one. And if you get the ball on top of your car, you can use the in-game timer like at 130 and just see how long you can keep the ball on top of your car without boost. This is actually one of the things I'm going to kind of spew my whole YouTube channel here for a second is on my YouTube channel, I used to be the world record dribble holder for the longest dribble. And if you watch that video on my channel, I basically did this exact thing right here is dribbling around the field without even using any boost for like over an hour. 99% of the time, I did not use boost whatsoever. It's all about just getting the dribbles down at regular driving pace. Um, Another exercise that you can do is, like I said, just do if you can do timing. One of the other things is just to do lengths of the field. See how many times you can actually go down one length of the field and make a turn and come back down the other side. See how many lengths you can go. Then I will say if you get comfortable getting the ball on top of your car, like from like that perspective of getting ahead of it, one thing you might want to practice is getting along the side of the car, right? Because you're not always going to have that set up. Sometimes you need to pick it up off the ground like this. So
Yeah, that's
again,
definitely one of the things I'm trying to work on, going to the side and picking it up from the side.
yep. Okay, awesome. So a lot of the thing is, again, keeping car cam, just starting out basic here, and then just matching the car speed. So no matter how, or matching the ball speed, no matter how slow it's going, I'm just going to drive like up next to it, and I'm going to match its speed, no matter how slow it's going to go or how fast it is. Then, obviously, if you cut into the ball and it tends to either not be picked up very far and it tends to do like that, you may not be actually enough ahead of the ball. Sometimes you actually need to kind of come around the side of it and almost kind of turn the ball as you pick it up. You're not always going to be able to pick it up in a straight line every time like this. So sometimes you do need to actually just kind of turn underneath it into it. Again, try to do this without boost. You see, I haven't really used any boost whatsoever during this time. If you're going too slow, you may not be able to pick a ball up whatsoever, and you may just end up just pushing it and turning it like this. So sometimes you may need to kind of get ahead of it and almost turn first or turn into it. If you can do that, sometimes you may need to practice just pushing the ball in circles on the ground first before you can tend to pick it up. Because then at this point, if you can turn it in circles, then it's just knowing to turn more and to get underneath it. So again, try to do a lot of these exercises on the left and the right sides of your car. Some people tend to, prefer like a specific air roll in one direction. Some people tend to prefer, going up the wall in one direction, right? When you're doing air drags or air dribbles or whatever. People always have a preference for sides, but try to do some of this stuff as best you can on both sides of your car. So then, it's just a matter of pushing the ball around. And a lot of this stuff, again, notice how I haven't used boost. It's getting you comfortable and getting you what I call being friends with the ball, right? I can push the ball around. I can push its buttons all I want. I'm really good friends with the ball. He's not going to get mad at me. And then at this point, if you can push the ball in circles, then you're kind of in the right direction. You can tend to do figure eights. I'm having one guy who I'm doing another coaching session with and seeing how many figure eights he can do, because he can get the ball on top of his car, but he can't really maneuver it yet. So I'm going to see how many circles he can do around the field. If you have a better objective, if you're good at just dribbling straight, maybe practice your turns by going on the outside boosts. But again, it all starts from just being able to pick the ball up and being able to turn it left and right. So you can do a lot of things from this situation then, in terms of practice. Then I'm going to kind of keep compounding from here. Is if you can pick the ball up and dribble it like this and turn it a little bit. One thing that we can do is, like you said, we'll incorporate flicks. Now, if you think about it from a game sense scenario, if you're on orange side, you're carrying the ball on top of your car, if I flick this, I'm more or less giving them the ball and I'm trying to shoot it, right? I'm getting rid of the ball. That may not always be the best scenario, because if you flick it, if you get a really strong flick, obviously this flick didn't go very far, but the idea there is that if you get rid of the ball, you can't follow it as easily. So we're going to incorporate our practice so far. I'm going to compound that, and I'm going to get the ball going in one direction. I'm going to get it on the side, and whatever direction I'm turning, so I'm turning to the right, you want to continue turning to the right, and once you get underneath the ball or as you pick it up, you're going to flip to the right. So it'll look something like that. The idea here is that you get height over an opponent. So like say I'm actually on the orange side, like in a game scenario, pick up this 100 boost. I'm going to come in, I'm going to be able to flick it over center, and then I can follow it up. Obviously I didn't execute 100% there, but you get the idea. That if I get a side flip flick like I did earlier, it pops it over an opponent, but you're not giving it to him. You're still staying with the play.
Still following, okay.
Yep, so that's the idea here. Is that, as you flick it, you can see how I'm still able to follow it. I'm not getting rid of the ball. I'm only popping it over him. So say I'm going towards the blue net again. I can come up here, side flip flick. Then I can shoot again. So that's what it would look like in a game scenario. You don't always, one thing people always have trouble with is knowing, okay, I don't always have to have forward progression. That's a huge thing in terms of like lower to mid ranks. Even champs and stuff, like high champs, still have struggle with that. Is you don't always have to have the ball going forwards towards their net. All you need to do is really, especially in ones and twos, is just to get it around people, right? So
position, yep, okay,
is to just be able to flick it over them. And even something like this, like, so say I'm even dribbling down the field, you don't always need to be turning into it to do a side flip flick like that too. You know, you can be driving straight at the net to flick it over somebody, but the idea is then that I can still catch it and still have control. So there's a lot that you can do in terms of just being able to pick the ball up, being able to dribble it, getting side foot flicks. So that's you know, instead of, you know, being able to front foot flick it and shooting it at their net, maybe just flicking it over somebody and following it again. Because then you can just, you know, especially in ones, if I get over somebody like this, all I got to do is just drive it in. So that's a lot more applicable, especially in ones, is just being able to side flip flick like this.
Yeah, and that's a 4 diagonal, right?
It's actually, I'm trying to flip. It may look like a diagonal flip, but I'm actually only flipping to the side. It only looks,
so it is
only
just
looks like that.
Side.
Yep, it only looks like that. And actually, in this VOD, when I'm recording this, you'll be able to see my controller inputs as well later on. So if you want to check it out later, you can see what I'm doing. But yes, it is try to tend to do like more of a side flip, because yeah, if you front flip like that, see how much I'm getting rid of the ball. Like, it's just propelling it so far forward. You may not always get a front foot flick like this where I can follow it up. You know, because typically with a front foot flick, you want to propel the ball forwards. So the idea there is you only front foot flick when you want to shoot it past an opponent. Whereas, you know, I think something like this would be more applicable where you only really need to get it over somebody. So that's way more applicable in ones here. So, like I said, it all starts from the ground here and being able to pick the ball up like this, right? Being able to come in from any angle, you know, say I get ball possession in ones, being able to bump it, you know, then from here you can practice anything. You know, you can, instead of staying close to it, you can practice bounce dribbles. So instead of chipping the ball up and catching it, I can come along the side and just start nudging it. So that's another thing that we didn't even talk about yet, is little bounce dribbles like this. And again, notice how I'm not using any boost whatsoever. So
yeah, that's pretty good.
You can kind of compound your movements all starting, and it all starts, like I said, from the ground up here, like figuratively and literally, is being able to pick the ball up, and you start, you know, getting used to being comfortable pushing the ball around like this and just being able to nudge it. So instead of doing circles like we were doing earlier and catching it like this, you can also do little bounce dribbles to the sides. That'll get you used to, you know, doing little bounce dribbles here and there. And again, notice I haven't used a whole lot of boost.
Power shots and all that. Hook shots, I think.
Yep. And then when you want to, you can kind of go a wider turn and, you know, get your shot on net. You know, then I can turn ball cam on and go for that. Go that route too. So hopefully that makes sense. A lot of this, like I said, it just starts literally from the ground up, is just being able to use these different moves. But it all starts with being able to be comfortable, or being comfortable with being really close to the ball. One thing I want to mention, though, and something you didn't mention in your notes here, is that I'm going to use the same idea and compound it to air drags and air dribbles and stuff like that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I call like the universal setup, if you will. So once we start to get comfortable dribbling, and, you know, one thing I didn't even mention is that if you're a little bit more advanced, you may want to add little power slides here and there. You know, like what
yeah,
Randy
that's
does.
something I definitely need to incorporate.
Yep. So one thing is that, let me see here if I can even kind of show you, is being able to chip the ball up, being able to power slide and turn into it, and being able to flick it. Like, that is huge in ones, right? Being able to just pick the ball up, drift in a catch. Like, even here, being able to maneuver it, power slide dribble, right? Being able to dribble. Again, I have 0 boost. This would be very applicable in a ones game. So, yeah, you get the idea. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the universal setup and stuff like that for applying what I've already talked about to the wall. So typically, again, I'm going to break this down from start to finish. It'll be a little quicker than what I talked about on the ground. But typically, so we start with car cam. You're dribbling along, and say you want to bring the ball up the wall. So you pick your angle, and you start heading towards the wall. First thing is, what I see a lot of people do is they have their angle, but then they go behind the ball, and they tend to hit the ball towards the net. They're like, oh, I need to have that forward progression. The same thing applies with the side foot flicks. You don't always have to have forward progression, especially when you're going up the wall. The air is your best, the best way to score, because if you go like this and you hit it, well, now I'm basically giving them the ball. I'm not in the air so that they can attack it from the ground. All they got to do is single jump or double jump to get the ball, right? You're getting rid of the ball. Like I said, it's the same idea with the front foot flicks. So
Right.
the best thing here is to not, the thing to note here is to not change your angle of your car if you can help it, right? There are always scenarios where there's always exceptions, but the idea is that once you have your angle, you're dribbling. Okay, now I'm going to go towards the orange net. I'm not going to change my angle. I'm going to keep car cam on for this example. I'm not going to change my angle whatsoever. I'm not going to turn. I'm going to stay behind it. So now what that looks like, now you can see I'm really consistent with the setup. I'm going to stay with it. So I'm going to break that down with the idea that, okay, I'm going to go towards the wall. I've got car cam on. I'm dribbling. Now I've got my angle I picked. Now the spacing and stuff like that should be about 1 to 2 car lengths. And I'll show you, obviously, just kind of breaking down for simpler terms. If you have a lot of space like this and you try to hit it, you're going to get a lot more space when you get up the wall. So now that's something I can't follow without wasting 100 boost to go after it. So you don't want to have too much space. So if you're dribbling like this and you have the ball in front of you, maybe just let go of gas for a second, then boost up the wall again. So even like a halfway decent setup like this is much better than the one before where I just boomed the ball. So you may not always have to brake. Sometimes it's just better like I'm not holding gas here until I try to go up the wall. And you can see I can get that set up consistently every time. It's all about that spacing, right? And that's just something that'll come with time. And just knowing like, okay, I'm at a good distance here. So sometimes I tend to just get that 1 to 2 car lengths. And one thing to note about when to hit the ball is that every map...
Definitely, like, above the line.
Yep, every map has this line. That means that between here and here is the corner, and this is a different angle. So you should always try to hit the ball above this line if you can. So I'm just for the sake of consistency here, I'm going to show what that looks like when you do hit it on the corner. You hit it towards the ceiling or in an angle that you don't want every time. It's like, okay, well, why would you hit it on the corner when you don't know where the ball is going to go? You know, again, there are exceptions to this rule when you literally just have to get it past somebody or something. But if the angle is the same every time above the wall, why not use that to our advantage? So, okay, now that we know that we have car cam on, we get our angle, we're not turning, we get our distance, then we know all we got to do is just follow it. So once we have our distance, you want to boost a little bit into it on the wall. Then once you hit the ball, you want to jump after it pretty immediately. Then at that point, it's just aerial adjustments. So,
do you typically let go of gas and then boost all the way up the wall, or just enough to pick up speed to kind of match the ball?
Nope. You don't want to match the ball speed because the idea is that you're accelerating the play from the wall, right? So that's why I said you don't. I'm gonna kind of exaggerate my point here. Even going on the wall like this or going on the ground, I'm not going to use boost whatsoever. I'm just going to go at driving speed just to accentuate this. The idea is that you boost upwards to get your height.
Okay.
So you see how high up I got. I wasn't even going very fast on the ground. The idea is that a majority of your movements, like I said, you want to use the air to your advantage. So even if you have a very high angle like this, you want to boost up the wall and accelerate the ball in the air. Because now a majority of your movements are supposed to be in the air. You want to be higher up if you can. Again, you don't want to hit it towards them. You want to hit it up into the air. So yes, I do tend to boost a little bit on every single one of these, even if it's just a little bit. So I'll show everybody what that looks like here.
And in general sense, usually the farther away you are from the goal, the more of an angle you need to essentially kind of get it.
Yep.
The majority of the way there.
Yes.
Like on target, pretty much.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So that's why I can afford at midfield, I can afford to go basically straight up and down. But yes.
Right.
So yeah, I guess if you're coming from your own net, then yeah, you have to kind of be going more sideways. That's when you can afford to go more behind the ball, right? Because you have to cover the whole ground, right? By the time you come towards their net, you have to be going forward. You have to have a lot of that forward progression.
Right.
But again, you see how even when I'm hitting the ball in the air, I'm trying to stay underneath it. I'm trying to keep the ball up high as high as I can, trying to use that air to our advantage. That's the reason why we go up the wall. You know, if we can't get a distance like away from our opponent on the ground, you want to keep it in the air. So Then at that point, I just want to kind of point out, if you can do this whole setup every time on the ground, and if you can get to this point right here every time, there are a lot of things that you can do with this. So the reason why I call it the universal setup is because you can use this same exact movements, the same exact setup for everything. From air drags, I'm going to kind of do like my little salesman pitch here, like this. You know, the idea is that then at that point, the only differences are what you do with it after that point. So you can do it with air drags. I've already kind of pointed out, instead of going towards the ball, I'm going to actually jump off and use my flip towards the backboard and get a rebound. So that's when you would have more forward progression here. So instead of just air dragging it, I would jump and use my flip.
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to get better at.
I'm going to keep going on a couple different points here just to kind of finish off my topics here, and then we can kind of go on from there. Then the setup is the same if you wanted to go for jump resets. Instead of going for an air dribble, I go upside down, try to get my jump reset. Obviously, that's more advanced. That's more like car mechanics than anything, but the same idea applies. Then the more applicable one, I think, for everybody would be to combine the two, right? So instead of going for a rebound or going for an air dribble, what you would do is you would wait on the wall, and you would use your flip. You'd wait along the wall and flip center. That would be a pass to your teammate. It's the same exact setup. So if I go here, I can pass across the field. Or obviously, if they're more underneath you, you'd want to kind of come on top of the ball and then hit it down.
Right.
So if my teammate's here center with me, I could just kind of pass down like that. So again, it's the same setup. One thing to note, or the thing to point out here, is I'm doing the same exact setup. I'm having the same distance from the ball every time when I do this, no matter what I do. It's just the only difference then is what you do with it after that point. And then the last thing is ceiling shots. So the only difference here is that, you know, if you'd have more of the intention to hit it up higher, and you would either jump to the wall. Oh, bad musty by me. Boo. You can either jump to the wall like I did to get your jump reset, or you can just drive up the wall and then fall.
What do you think is easier starting out?
A lot of people tend to get confused when they drive up the corner, because now if I go straight, I'm actually going out towards mid, right? So your
Right.
directions, you do have to turn on the ceiling. So a lot of people tend
they
to
are
struggle.
inverted.
Yep, and your controls are inverted. So I think the same idea applies, though, is that if you get behind the ball and you get your line of sight, you know, like we talked about on the ground, the same thing applies. The only thing I'm doing now is I'm turning. See, I'm not turning whatsoever. The only part I'm turning is just maybe 5 degrees. Because when I was on the ceiling, my car was like this. So you only have to
Right.
turn maybe 5 or 10 degrees. The same thing applies through the whole play. So I would say, you know, maybe jumping would help, because then if you jump, then you're really staying with the line that you set up before. There's not a whole lot of turning that you have to do, but not everybody can have the coordination to jump up towards the wall and get a flip like that. So I'd say maybe driving, just because it's less inputs that you have to do, but it just depends, I guess. I always found it
Probably try and work on both, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. You may not always have to do a spin. Some people tend to do like, there you go. Some people tend to do like a spin when they go up the wall, like this, just for more flair, right? But yeah, I mean, if you're already coming at the angle like this, then once you jump, you're already almost upside down. You just have to air roll just like a little bit. Like,
Yeah, just a touch.
Yeah.
I saw that in the last couple ones,
Yep.
which clarified everything.
Actually, this one, if people check out the VOD, I actually didn't air roll whatsoever during that. If I'm already coming up pretty much sideways, I can actually just, now I have a jump. I didn't even air roll whatsoever. So just depending on your angle, you may already just,
Right.
it may be better to just try that if you want to practice your jumps.
Just kind of slam up into the ceiling.
Yeah, pretty much. You know, and then you can kind of make it look cleaner, you know, if you use air roll. So all I'm going to do is just air roll a little bit to the right to get a little bit more of a cleaner setup. So, so again, I'm going to just kind of go back to point number 1 here. It all starts with being able to maneuver the ball on the ground, right? So a lot of people, when they see like Squishy and they see all the pros and they see all the freestylers and stuff like that doing, or even doing what I'm doing, you know, in the air, they want to be able to do that. But it all starts from the ground, right? Being able to maneuver the ball in any way that you want. Yes, it comes down to what you can do in the air, but it all starts from the ground, and what I just talked about from the start. Of being able to set yourself up from the beginning. So that's my whole spiel. Do you have any questions about anything I said so far? Or just
no, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. I've gone over this a bunch of times now with other people in my other training sessions. But I think the overall idea then is that if you get comfortable with dribbling and you get consistent enough, you don't even have to think about it. Then the only time you have to think is like, okay, well now what can I do in the air, right? You eliminate the whole other half of the play, you know. Then you can focus all your training on what to do with your car in the air. You know, you start from the ground, you learn to dribble, you know, you learn to flick, you get comfortable, you know, power sliding, you know, you get your angle, then you're in a game and you're like, okay, well now I got the setup, now I can go for an air drag or an air dribble. So hopefully that helps you. Like I said, I've gone over this a couple times already with some other people, but I like to just try to break it down into those several components and just kind of add on top of each other, you know. So there are always different exercises, like I said, carrying the ball on top of your car, seeing how long you can do it, seeing how many lengths of the field, you know, doing circles, doing figure eights, adding power slide, you know, starting with flicks, getting really comfortable being really close to the ball. And then what this will do too is if you get really comfortable being close to the ball, then you get comfortable being close to the ball in the air, of just knowing, okay, how to manipulate the ball in the air with a lot of those little touches. So I think that's all I really have to say about this. Like I said, this was only supposed to be 15 minutes. Tend to go over.
The only question I had is, like, sometimes people can, like, jump once and stay pretty close to the ball, like doing, like, a ground flick. Usually for, like, 1v1s.
Yeah.
And they can manipulate it into, like, a 45 or, you know, something like that.
Like that?
Right.
Yeah.
I tend to pop it out pretty far from me for whatever reason.
Sure.
Maybe it's just, like, my positioning or...
Yeah, so sometimes if, you know, if you jump and you find that like it's getting, you know, away from you, you may not have total control that you think you do. Again, notice how like during this time I'm not like having the ball bouncing on my car, right? A lot of this is when you carry it. Notice how even when I'm going down the field, I have it on the side of my car. It all starts with like almost the side. Sometimes if you carry the ball too much on top of your car, when you jump, you're just gonna pop it straight up. So you can see that by the time I start it, it's on the very edge of my car. Especially when you want to do flicks. Most of the time it starts with the ball kind of on the edges of your car. So I'll see if I can kind of show you. It's obviously very hard for me to do it instinctually. So maybe if something like that happens, that means that you have the ball too much on the very top of your car. You may want to have it more on the front. Like that. So
okay, because usually when I do like a side flip or like a diagonal front,
yep,
like I can get some decent power, or like, you know, a back flip. But usually I want to try and obviously get better like efficiency.
Yeah.
Or and start evolving like into like keeping it close or like getting a 45 or.
I will say what I just did there. Notice how like if I'm trying to do this, and I go okay. Well, again, it's hard for me to not have good ball control sometimes, but like, I think what'll help is actually being able to pick it up from the ground and being able to knowing like when to turn, when to use boost, right? And being able to drive your car through the ball like that. If you can do that from the ground, being able to pick the ball up and being able to flick it, that will really, really help you. I think that's probably the exercise you probably need to work on for that stuff. If you have a hard time keeping control of the ball, it's actually, you need to keep maintaining your driving force all the way through your flick. it's not just getting it in the right spot and double tapping X. It's actually like knowing when to hold down trigger, when not to hold down trigger, knowing when to drive and use boost. See how I use boost a little bit through that flick, just to drive it a little bit higher. It's not always about just getting it on the right position. It's always about having control in that full drive through the ball. And I think if you do that from the ground up, that'll probably help you with that movement there. Not to say that you know, because then you'll get more comfortable again. Doing it from the ground, you can really drive through the ball. So I think if you practice that, that'll really help you out specifically with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like I said,
one last question. What is your steering and aerial sensitivity?
sure. I will show everybody in the VOD here. So my settings, I actually have 1.0 for aerial sensitivity and steering sensitivity. I've never really messed with anything higher. I've been playing this game since the game came out, and before air roll left and air roll right were even implemented, before custom training was implemented, right? So like that was one of those settings that like I tried maybe once when I first started, and I was like, oh man, like my turning and all my stuff is all sort of effed up. So I didn't really like it, and I never really kind of looked back. I always kind of built my foundation on 1.0. My controller dead zone is 0.10. And then my dodge dead zone is 0.80. Normally I have it at 0.75, but I increase my dodge dead zone as my sticks sort of decay, as my controller gets a little older. I tend to increase that over time.
Okay.
So yeah. Quickly just about my controls so people know as well for the video is I use obviously my triggers are the same for gas and brake. My right bumper is my boost, and my left bumper is actually unbound. I don't have it bound to anything. I use a Scuf PS4 controller, so my bottom button is jump, my X button is jump. My square, I used to have that as regular power slide and regular air roll back in the day, just on a regular PS4 controller. But it is still my power slide, and it's actually now my air roll left because I use a Scuf PS4 controller with paddles on the back. So I use my left paddle as a square, which is my air roll left, and then my right paddle is my circle, my right button with air roll right, and then my camera is still triangle.
Okay.
So, you know, you think about it like it just allows me to use air roll left and air roll right, and I never have to really use, you never use power slide at the same time as like air roll. So I find that it works pretty great for me.
Okay. I pretty much have like default, except power slide and regular air roll is on left bumper.
Okay.
And then regular gas and brake. And then right is air roll left, and I'm trying to use that more.
Gotcha. Oh, you mean right on the D-pad?
No, like right bumper, sorry.
Oh, gotcha. Yep, right bumper. Got it. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, the reason I went with Scuf is because I prefer the paddles, and like it's easier for me to kind of, utilize my thumbs. But obviously, if any, that's one of the things I found with regular controllers, like a regular Xbox or regular PS4, is that I wanted to be able to implement air roll left and air roll right about 2 years ago, and I found that like I didn't want to have overwhelm my thumbs when I was pressing buttons. So. All right. Did you have any other questions for me or anything like that? I mean, we've kind of gone into a 45-minute session here now.
Yeah. Definitely didn't mean to do that.
No, it's all good. It's obviously a lot of my explanation. I wanted to kind of give you enough info to work on, you know what I mean? Like, especially for other people too, if they ever watch this, like, everybody's at different levels. So like you said, your question specifically of like, okay, well, if you don't have enough control, well, then you might want to work on, X, Y, and Z specifically. So.
But yeah, that pretty much covers everything.
All right, awesome. Yeah, and feel free anytime if you have any questions, feel free to DM me or schedule another session. And always, if you're like, hey, I had a couple people send me starting clips of like, I can do figure eights, or here's my first figure eight that I can do. I'm teaching like a gold player right now. And he can carry the ball and do a couple figure eights now, and so he did his first one, so he was super happy about that. So now I will have like a starting clip and like then eventually he'll be able to be like, oh, well, I can do like 5 figure eights in a row, or I can carry the ball infinitely now, you know, that kind of stuff. So feel free to send me like progression clips and stuff too.
It's really cool. All right, yeah.
You know, I like to see everybody's wins just as much. You know, I'm taking this time to, you know, kind of show you guys. So I like to see everybody's wins just as much as the GCR server. You know. So. All right, if you don't have anything else, I think I'm gonna head out. I'm probably gonna take a break for a bit before I go into my my coaching call with Luke here.
Sure.
So, all right, man. I'll probably see you around on the server, if not later today.
Yeah, probably. Probably do
right.
some in-houses or something.
Yeah, definitely. All right, man. I'll see you around. Take it easy. Have a good one.
All right, you as well.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Later.